A 58-year-old man named Inuyashiki moves with his family to a house in Tokyo. Despite all his efforts to provide comfort to his wife and 2 children, the man is completely undervalued and underappreciated by everyone around him. His routine is similar to that of most Japanese citizens. Every day, Inuyashiki braves the crowded subway to get to work, where he is humiliated and treated like a machine, completely replaceable. At night, on the way back home, the man comes across a robbery scene. He thinks for a few seconds what he should do, but decides to leave. At that moment, he comes across his daughter, Mari, who has just witnessed an act of cowardice by her father. This only served to reinforce the girl's belief in him already. While sitting outside his house, reflecting on life, Inuyashiki is surprised by a dog that walks through the gate and walks up to him. Strapped to his collar was a note written by the animal's former owner. The note said the dog's name is Hanako and asks the person who found her to take care of her. At that time, Marie, his wife, appears and the man intends to inform her that they now have a new member in the family, but before Inuyashiki can do that, the woman orders him to get rid of the animal. The next morning, during a visit to the doctor, the poor guy discovers that he has cancer and the disease has already spread throughout his body. According to the doctor who attended him, Inuyashiki would only have 3 more months to live. After receiving the sad news, he takes out his cell phone and calls his family. But despite everyone seeing his call, no one answers him. During dinner, he tries to tell what happened, but none of his family members pay any attention to what the man has to say. Instead, they just complain about him. Marie asks why the dog is still in that house and orders Inuyashiki to get him out of there immediately. Coerced, the man takes the leash and takes Hanako away. When he is a few kilometers from home, the old man releases the animal and runs away so that he does not follow him. However, his plan doesn't work and the dog goes after him. Upon arriving at a park, Inuyashiki believes he has managed to lose the dog, but when he turns the other way, he sees Hanako sitting, looking at him. At that moment, the man regrets having abandoned her and apologizes for what he had done. Seconds later, he sees a boy sitting on a bench next to him and a strong flash approaching. The dog is scared and runs away. Suddenly an explosion happens. And still stunned by the shockwave, Inuyashiki can see some strange creature shapes around him. When he wakes up in the morning, the man realizes that he can see without the aid of his glasses. Inuyashiki also notices that Hanako was still there waiting for him and decides to take her back home. During breakfast, he eats miso soup and feels an insatiable thirst. After drinking tap water, he goes to the bedroom and notices that a large amount of smoke starts to come out of his hands. Inuyashiki takes off his shirt and notices that something is wrong. Suddenly, his right arm transforms into a weapon and expels all the soup he had eaten a few minutes earlier. As he runs his hands over his face, the man feels that there is something strange on his neck. When he squeezes it, his face and ears detach from his head and a core is revealed. Inuyashiki looks at himself in the mirror and is desperate when seeing his appearance. 2 of his arms turn into weapons and he no longer knows how to control his own body. Seeing the man's plight, Hanako is scared and starts barking. Marie hears the dog barking and goes to the bedroom to check if the animal was still there. Luckily for Inuyashiki, seconds before the woman opens the door, his body returns to normal. Hiro belongs to the same class as Mari and, after class, decides to pay a visit to Choko, his best friend. A few days ago, the boy didn't go to school because he was being bullied. When Hiro enters the boy's room, he asks for him to go to the balcony. Hiro points his finger at a bird in flight and shoots, as if his arm is a weapon. At that moment, the animal's body explodes and Choko doesn't understand what happened. Hiro then takes the boy to the garage and uses his new powers to cause accidents between the cars that were parked. Finally, the boy takes off his shirt and shows his friend that his entire body can be turned into a weapon. Hiro refers to himself as a superhero and believes that, as of now, he is no longer a human. Meanwhile, Inuyashiki still hasn't realized his special abilities. He believes himself to be an aberration and wonders if it was all just a hallucination. To make matters worse, that day he was fired and had no idea how he was going to pay the mortgage on his house. What he feared most happened. His family's well-being was at risk. On the way back home, the man finds an injured pigeon on the ground. He picks up the animal and, surprisingly, is able to see exactly what is going wrong with it. A few seconds after holding it in his hands, the bird is healed and can fly freely. In that instant, Inuyashiki discovers a new ability. Suddenly, he hears the voice of a woman begging the doctor to save the life of her 10-year-old son. The man realizes that this voice is coming from the nearest hospital and decides to go there. Upon entering the room, he finds an unconscious little boy named Keita. His life depended on a machine. When looking at the boy, his system soon detects the cause of the illness and Inuyashiki holds the young man's face in an attempt to cure him. Shortly thereafter, the healing was complete and Keita begins to open his eyes. At that moment, his mother enters the room and is scared to find that unknown man. She calls for the doctor, but is soon surprised by a miracle. The boy who, a few minutes ago, was in a coma gets up and calls out to his mother. Everyone is impressed and Inuyashiki leaves. He can't remember the last time he was so happy in his life. The next day, Choko decides to go to school. As soon as the boy enters the room, he is approached by Tekken, one of the delinquents who threatened him. When he tries to intimidate Choko, Hiro intrudes and Tekken grabs his shirt. However, Hiro holds the boy's arm tightly enough to crush him and orders him to apologize to the boy. He then points his finger at Tekken and asks him to return the money he stole from Choko. However, the boy claims not to have all the money with him at that moment, so Hiro threatens to kill him, but Choko stops him. Despite hating that guy, the boy didn't want his best friend to become a criminal. After this, Hiro leaves the room and Shien goes after him. The girl takes courage and confesses the love she feels for the boy. When he finds out that the girl likes him, Hiro is overjoyed and thanks her for revealing his feelings. After class, Hiro calls his mother. The woman asks him to go to her father's house for dinner that night, as the man was sick and wanted to see him. The boy harbors resentment towards his father, as he had abandoned Hiro and his mother to start another family, but still decides to go see him. Upon arriving there, the man opens the door and gives his son the money for that month's alimony. During dinner, Hiro is warmly welcomed by his stepmother and his two half-brothers. The boy even liked them, but he was never able to forgive his father. Later, while everyone was eating dessert, the young man feels the urge to eliminate that man, but gives up when he realizes that his brothers didn't understand what was happening and saw that situation as a joke. A few hours later, he walks back home. Consumed by hatred, Hiro enters one of the houses in the neighborhood and finds a family in the room. Without hesitation, the boy shoots the man in the chest and then kills his wife. Inuyashiki, who was healing children at a hospital, hears a girl's desperate screams and runs towards her to help her. When he arrives at the house, he finds the young woman dead on the floor, shot in the head. The man tries to cure her, but her powers do not allow him to bring people back to life. As he walks into the room, he finds the girl's parents dead and Hiro standing in front of them. In order not to leave witnesses, the boy shoots Inuyashiki, flinging him away. After eliminating everyone who witnessed that massacre, Hiro leaves. Some time later, Inuyashiki gets up and goes looking for the criminal. However, it was too late. The young man flew away without a trace. On the news, all there was talk was about the brutal attack that took place in Shofu City and ended in the death of an entire family. According to police, the victims were hit by a gun, but no trace of a bullet was found. When she meets Hiro, Choko asks if the boy was responsible for the death of that family. He confesses that he does and says that now he is no longer a human, but a god. However, he promises that he will continue to protect his friend. Hearing this, Choko is extremely disappointed and scared of the boy, so asks him not to look for him again. When he gets home, Hiro's mother asks that, next month, he moves in with his father. When questioned about that sudden decision, the woman reveals that she has cancer and that the doctors gave her little time to live. Hearing this, Hiro despairs. The boy hugs his mother and promises that he won't let her die, as she hadn't done anything wrong to make her deserve to go through this. At night, while regretting having lost his job and therefore not being able to support his family, Inuyashiki hears Choko's cry for help. The boy asked God to stop his friend and stop him from killing people. Faced with this cry for help, Inuyashiki picks up Hanako and takes her flying to the park, where Choko was. He is determined to use his newfound superpowers to protect people. When he finds the boy, the man explains what happened the night he and Hiro gained their superhuman abilities. Inuyashiki says that the boy was sitting on a bench right next to him at the time of the explosion and, when they woke up, their bodies were changed. Choko asks if there are any weaknesses in the old man's body that he could use to defeat Hiro, as they were the same. However, Inuyashiki says that, until now, his only weak point was the miso soup, because when he ingested it, his body expelled the food. From that day forward, Choko decides to train the man to fight his friend, teaching him everything he's seen Hiro do so far. The first lesson is to shoot a coffee can with his fingers. After a few tries, he soon gets the hang of it. Tired, Inuyashiki runs to drink water, but expels all liquid a few seconds later. When he reads the drink's label, Choko discovers that it was actually an isotonic liquid used by athletes. This drink has salt in its composition, as well as miso soup. Given this, the boy concludes that Inuyashiki is not able to digest sodium. A few days after discovering her mother's illness, Hiro accompanies her to her doctor's appointment and the doctor informs her that, miraculously, all the malignant cells growing in the woman's body had disappeared and she had been cured. While walking happily back home, they are approached by some police officers who want to interrogate him about the death of a family in Chofu City. Afraid of being arrested, Hiro runs away and is pursued by the police. During the escape, he ends up eliminating 3 agents. Despite having dozens of trained men behind him, the boy manages to escape. A few hours later, the news starts warning people about Hiro Shishigami, who is on the run. The next day, at the end of class, Shion returns home and, on the way, meets Hiro. She invites him to her house and informs him that only she and her grandmother, who is already quite old, live there. So he would be safe in that apartment and he could stay there as long as he wanted. While returning home, Mari spots Choco leaving the train station with her father. When questioning the boy about how they met, the boy lies saying it was through an online game. While watching TV, Hiro discovers that since he ran away, the press hasn't left his mother alone. The woman was constantly harassed by dozens of reporters who said terrible things about her and blamed her for the crime committed by her son. He later finds out that his mother couldn't take the pressure and took her own life. While scouring the internet, he finds a chat in which a group of people speculated about what had happened. While reading the conversations, Hiro sees a message from a young man who reveals that he was responsible for disclosing the woman's address to the press. In the messages below, dozens of people were congratulating the guy on his good work. Enraged, Hiro appears on that idiot's computer screen and, contrary to expectations, the boy is happy and surprised to meet the famous Hiro. But his happiness is short-lived. Hiro points his finger at the screen and lands several shots on the guy, who begs him to stop it. However, the young man cannot forgive him for divulging his mother's address and only stops shooting when the young man is dead. Then he does the same thing with each of the people who were in the chat and supported what the guy had done. This episode was enough to cause chaos among the Tokyo authorities. In the middle of the night, Shion gets up and goes to talk to Hiro. During the conversation, the boy claims that he is really to blame for the death of that family. The girl refuses to believe that he is capable of doing something so wicked. So, Hiro shows off his robot arm and then takes her flying with it. During the flight, the girl starts crying for Hiro's victims. According to the girl, they also had dreams and people who loved them. Still, Shion states that she wants to stay by the boy's side and he promises he won't leave her. Later, they return home. As the girl gets up to drink water, in the middle of the night, her house is invaded by armed agents. Shion yells at Hiro and asks him to run away, but the boy hugs the girl and knocks her to the ground. He tries to protect her while the cops machine gun them. After being hit, Hiro fights back and manages to eliminate them all. When he gets up, the boy realizes that Shion's grandmother is dead. Upon looking at the girl, he discovers that she was also eliminated in that attack. Despite having used her body as a shield to protect her, the girl had been shot several times. As there was nothing else he could do, Hiro decides to run away and is now even more thirsty for revenge. The next day, Inuyashiki asks his wife and children to stay at home and not turn on any cell phone or computer screens as this was being Hiro's new method of attack. However, his family, as usual, ignores him and each one goes on with their activities normally. A few hours later, Hiro breaks into the city's big screens and informs the residents about what happened the night before. He says that the police raided the home of an elderly woman and a high school student and killed them. Finally, he says he received a declaration of war from the police, so he decided to start his own war against Japan and it would only end when everyone was dead. Then the psychopath points his finger at the screen and starts shooting at people who were on the street. While training his powers with Choco, Inuyashiki hears people's cries of despair and decides to go there to help them. Hiro's broadcast is interrupted and gives way to the schedule of a local news that was being broadcast live. While talking on the phone, the journalist is shot in the head and the programming is interrupted again. Mari and her class were taking a tour of one of the buildings in town when they were told what was going on. Students take out their cell phones to follow the news and end up becoming the next victims. During the massacre, Inuyashiki manages to invade the screens and broadcast a video of Choco, in which the boy asks everyone to turn off their computers and cell phones and keep away from any other screen. Hearing this, Hiro sends missiles to destroy the city's big screens and takes the opportunity to bomb some buildings that were in the way, including the one where Mari was. At that time, Inuyashiki appears behind the boy and asks him to stop killing people. He says that the night the boy was hit by the bomb, he was also there and had his body transformed. But Hiro remains determined to destroy that country, so Inuyashiki shoots him. A duel ensues and the boy unleashes his missiles to pursue his enemy. The attack fails and they continue flying through the city on a frantic hunt. Inuyashiki hears his daughter asking for help and tries to reach her, but is stopped by Hiro, who throws the old man against a building and he ends up in a TV's team helicopter. The boy appears soon after and knocks the reporter and the cameraman off the aircraft. Inuyashiki manages to save the man, but before leaving the psychopath shoots the pilot in the head. The helicopter goes out of control and is about to crash into a building. However, before the accident, Inuyashiki catches the cameraman and manages to escape. But his efforts were to no avail. Minutes later, Hiro approaches and shoots the guy in the head. Then he tries to convince the old man to join him. As Hiro drinks water, Inuyashiki sees a good opportunity to stop him. He destroys the boy's bottle and drops the bottle containing the isotonic liquid on the floor. When Hiro ingests that drink and tries to attack Inuyashiki, his system collapses. Still, he chases the old man off the planet, but just as he's about to deliver the final blow, his body starts to self-destruct. At this point, he realizes that he has been tricked. Its engines fail and Inuyashiki sends out his missiles to finish the job. When he manages to defeat Hiro, he rushes to answer his daughter's cry for help. But by then, the girl was already dead. He performs CPR on Mari in an attempt to revive his daughter, and luckily, his plan works. The girl breathes again and Inuyashiki uses his powers to heal her. As they embrace, Hiro appears and flings the old man away. The madman starts shooting at all the survivors and saves Mari for last. When he was a few steps away from eliminating the girl, Inuyashiki jumps on his arm. But still, Mari was hit. The man rushes to heal her before the girl dies from her wound, but Hiro manages to knock him down. The boy remains determined to end the girl's life and Inuyashiki tries to stop him, but ends up getting a good beating. After being hit by several punches, his head opens and Mari discovers that her father is no longer an ordinary human. Hiro takes advantage of his opponent being weak and picks up an iron bar to attack him. After taking several hits, he still watches his enemy drag Mari out of the building and threatens to release her. The man begs the boy not to do this, but his pleas have no effect. Seeing his daughter face a brutal death, his energy core accelerates and Inuyashiki becomes a machine powerful enough to destroy Hiro's body with a single blow. He then flies at full speed in an attempt to catch Mari before her body hits the ground. Barely, Inuyashiki manages to rescue the girl and save her life. The following week, the news announces the death of criminal Hiro and closes the case. However, the police never found the young man's body, only his broken pieces. In Inuyashiki's house, his identity was still a secret. Only Mari knew who her real father was. Before leaving Japan, Hiro goes to Chako's house to say goodbye. Despite being scared, the boy is happy to see that his friend is still alive. He calls Hiro to play one last game together, but when he turns around to talk to him, the boy is already gone.